Prime Minister has been told by President Trump that the United States does not need its once great ally now to send aircraft carriers to the Middle East.
Yes, in that post on Truth Social, the US President said he will remember the lack of British support for his war with Iran, claiming he doesn't need people that join wars after they've already been won.
Well, also, adding to the woes for number 10, Tony Blair has now criticised Keir Starmer, saying the UK should have supported America from the very start.
Joining us now, journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Scacciadotti, and it's very good to talk to you this morning. What do you think of this post on Truth Social overnight? And does it mark an absolute end to the special relationship? And does that matter?
Well, it's scathing, isn't it, Anne? I mean, reading what he said, the United Kingdom, our once great ally, once great, and the greatest of them all, is finally giving serious thought to sending 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East. That's OK, Prime Minister Starmer. We don't need them any longer, but we will remember. I mean, it couldn't really be more scathing, more cutting if he wanted it to. And it's not the first time. There were those comments he made the other day where he said this was no Churchill, sitting in front of a bust of Churchill in the Oval Office. Donald Trump's being very, very clear here what he thinks about Keir Starmer, what he thinks about this government, really what he thinks about Great Britain as it is at the moment. And that's really quite damaging, I think, for that special relationship. But many people watching this say it's deserved. It seems even Tony Blair thinks that Keir Starmer has acted incorrectly in terms of this. And it's a very difficult situation for Starmer, who I think has wanted to satisfy large portions of the UK electorate who aren't behind Britain getting involved in this action. But he's just played it so badly. He appears to have done the worst of both worlds.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because even if he did something we disagreed with, if he stuck to his guns, you could at least, even begrudgingly, respect his position. But he's obviously switched.
Yeah, I mean, stuck to his guns. It's like he doesn't have any guns. He's looking for the guns. Maybe they're on the ship that's being fixed. I mean, it's only reflected, actually, how poor the UK military position is for anything as well. And I think that's also very damaging for the UK because it's made Britain look weak. And that's really the last thing that's needed, especially as it turns out Britain might well be weak. So at least it could look strong. I think Keir Starmer has really fumbled his way through this. And also watching the Defence Secretary on Sky News saying that this action in Iran was different from last time, and that's why they're now reconsidering and trying to get involved, because he said last time the Iranian strikes only aimed at military targets and were proportionate. Well, I can tell you, I was sitting in bomb shelters every night in Tel Aviv during the 12-day war, sheltering from ballistic missiles which were raining down on the whole of Israel from top to bottom. They were not aimed at military targets. They were aimed at civilian targets. They were aimed at the Weizmann Institute, a leading scientific research centre. They were aimed at a hospital. They were aimed at people's homes. They killed civilians predominantly. So to hear again this government saying that the Iranian actions back in June were proportionate and the Iranian actions back in June were aimed at military targets also shows that they're either dim or they're liars. And I think it really reveals their attitude not just towards the US, but towards the great ally that this country has in the state of Israel. And again, I think we all know why they're doing that, but it just makes them look weak. I don't think anything they're doing satisfies the people they're doing this for, and I don't think it satisfies their moral obligation on the world stage to actually act against evil. This country, Britain, has said numerous times from top level that the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic regime, has tried to kill people on British soil 15, 20 times. They just arrested 4 Iranians, 3 of them dual nationals, for alleged surveillance of Jewish targets to try to carry out terrorist attacks here in the United Kingdom. What clearer reason could they have? They have still Craig and Lindsay Foreman, 2 British people who were taken prisoner in Iran and sentenced now to a jail sentence. They were tourists who were on a motorbike trip going through Iran. They are now stuck in Iran. We had Nazanin Zaghari Radcliffe. We had some years back the British Navy personnel who were seized and held hostage by the Iranian regime. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, but the actual list of direct challenges, attacks, aggressions towards the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, that list is long enough that Britain ought to have at least had sterner words to say.
Yes, but this Prime Minister constantly invokes international law. What's your understanding of international law? Who makes international law? Who enforces it? Or is it just dreamed up by people who just want an excuse?
I think this is one of the interesting questions of our time because, international law is a great idea, I suppose, and it works well when everybody is obeying it. But that's the catch. When some countries and actors aren't obeying international law, it means that it just puts you in a position of great weakness when you stick to it and invoke it constantly as some sort of mantra, but a mantra which makes you act, let's say, immorally or unethically, or lets you sit back and watch great wrongdoings being done, let's say to the Iranian people being slaughtered in their tens of thousands, or to your own citizens whose lives have been put at risk by the Islamic Republic regime's actions here in the UK, as I mentioned before. So I think the idea of international law being the reason that Keir Starmer and the UK government doesn't get involved, well, I think that's for the birds. In truth, they don't want to get involved, and that's fine. They should just say so. There could be plenty of ways that they could look at international law and find ways to get involved. I think there are plenty of justifiable reasons for Great Britain, just as there are for the State of Israel and there are for the United States of America, to be engaging in military action with the Islamic Republic of Iran. It is a country that has sponsored terrorism around the globe, including here, but in many countries around the globe. I mean, just in the first week of this war, the Iranian leadership attempted to widen the conflict across the region. They had missiles and drones launched not only towards Israel, but towards surrounding Gulf and Arab countries. And with the help of its regional proxies, Iran spread the extent of its attacks from Cyprus all the way to the coast of Sri Lanka. They said yesterday, through that statement of the Iranian president, that they were going to stop, finally, after a week, attacking neighbouring Arab countries, but they didn't. The fact is that this is a reckless and dangerous country, which, yes, of course, it's reacting to military action from Israel and America, but it's reacting as a sort of Catherine wheel, firing off attacks on all of its neighbours in the region. 12 countries it's tried to strike, has struck in that region. I think that the British position is looking increasingly weak, even if there is a justifiable reason or rationale for not getting involved. And even if that reason is British military weakness, just means that there isn't a lot Britain could do. They could have at least let Donald Trump use Diego Garcia. There are plenty of passive actions that Britain could have taken, which would have put Keir Starmer in a less awkward and feeble-looking position right now.
All right, Jonathan, good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's a really interesting point, actually, because it's a case of saying, even if we could disagree with what Starmer's done, but if he held that position, outlined why clearly, but could still take that passive action and that defensive action.
To look for ways that he could help.
Yeah, but also even just simple things like, as we keep bleating on about, but sending HMS Dragon, or as it would have been HMS Duncan a couple of weeks ago, as a defensive point for Cyprus. I mean, that wouldn't have been seen necessarily as aggressive if he didn't want to appear remotely aggressive. It's just defensive action. But it's the fact he hasn't done any of it is hugely problematic, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. He could have dithered in a much more constructive way.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GBNews viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
All right, let's talk to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, who's actually in Dubai. Richard, morning to you. What is the situation there?
Very good morning to you. Well, as I speak, all is relatively calm, but I can tell you that there is utter bewilderment, sadness, and frankly, despair, as well as some frustration amongst the Gulf states. I've been speaking to government officials, ambassadors, a number of people from different nationalities, just complete despair at the utter failure of the Prime Minister to show any leadership whatsoever, despair at the collapse in the UK's reputation around the world, despair, therefore, at the understandable frustration of President Trump, who clearly feels that Starmer is he's just a weak follower, a sort of Johnny-come-lately to the to this vital endeavour. And it's remarkable how low our reputation has sunk so quickly here in the Middle East at this vital moment. What I can say is they're also delighted here at the performance of their Iron Dome type system, which has got a number of different levels and layers to it, which has intercepted a whisker under 100% of the some 1,000+ drones and missiles that have come over. The only ones they haven't intercepted are those that were basically going to land harmlessly in the sea. It's been truly remarkable. And there's been quite a lot of misreporting, Stephen and Anne, in the British press about what's happened here in the UAE. A number of the areas where you see what people think is a drone hitting, actually that is debris from a drone or missile that has been hit. That is debris hitting the ground or hitting buildings, as opposed to a full-on drone strike. So at the first time of asking in serious earnest, the leaders here are delighted with the performance of their security systems.
The performance of our Prime Minister at the moment, would you say it's sincere? And therefore, is it right that we, or anyone, let alone President Trump, should actually be criticising him for being earnest and being sincere in his beliefs?
People don't see it as sincere or earnest. They see it as weak and cowardly. And our reputation has been trashed around the world. You should be under no illusion whatsoever. And the reason I'm here, not only to be with my fiancée, but also actually to show solidarity with our friends and allies and partners here in the UAE, and to show some optimism that things will change post next general election, because this level of frustration, and when people say that they're grateful for the support of the French and the Canadians, which on one hand is good, but on the other hand is frankly so depressing for us in the UK to hear that, and then they sort of slightly despair at the what have we got left? Have we got a destroyer that works, or haven't we? Does it need a bit of welding here and there, a bit of WD-40? I mean, we've become a laughing stock. People should be under no illusion the extent to which the UK has become an international, humiliated laughing stock amongst our partners and allies. I
wonder though, Richard, are you being unpatriotic? Because Baroness Hayter on the channel yesterday, I mean, she wasn't talking about reform, actually. She was talking about Kemi Badenoch, who's obviously been very critical of the Prime Minister. But she said about Kemi Badenoch, she's paid tribute to our forces, and we know reform very much backs our armed forces. If they are at war, you do not, as the leader of the opposition or as an opposition party, then start attacking the leadership of those forces, the Prime Minister. It's not practical, it's not patriotic, she said.
And she's completely wrong. I'm just giving you the hard, harsh, blunt facts about what has happened to the reputation of the United Kingdom amongst our allies and partners. And it's better to be truthful than to try and cover things up and pretend all is fine when it's not. And our brave armed forces, they need clear, strong, robust direction. They don't need to sort of have their hands tied behind their back or one hand tied behind the back and say, oh, you can defend once you've been attacked, but you can't defend. And the best form of defense, let's remember, is actually attack before someone lobs a missile at you. So I think our armed forces are despairing as well. And as you were touching on earlier, it does raise the serious question about how much we are spending on defence and are we spending it well. And I think many in the armed forces, both current and retired, feel very, very strongly that we haven't been spending enough, we haven't been spending it well enough, and we haven't been maintaining our equipment. And some fundamental mistakes have been made because of the lack of political direction just in recent weeks. We could have sent that destroyer to Cyprus a number of weeks ago. We could have paused our astute submarine that was on a goodwill trip to Australia. That could have stopped near the Gulf to show support to the US strike groups. But oh no, our political leadership just blundered on.
What's worrying about that, Richard, is we've had no explanation of that political decision not to pre-deploy anything. I mean, they keep saying, well, we've sent some equipment over and things, but that's not the point. It's the anti-ballistic capabilities that we need, which a Type 45 destroyer can provide. And they're not telling us why it didn't happen.
And there you are. And I think the answer is because they are vacillating. It's actually not clear now who's in charge. Is Starmer in charge, or is Red Ed Miliband in charge of this? He seems to have sort of led the cabinet coup. It just reeks of weakness and indecision. And it's so important to be a reliable ally at moments of critical stress and when one needs to stand together. And we've been left sort of drifting in the wind. We can't be trusted, can't be reliable, and people now worry we haven't got any decent kit either.
And of course, the real leader of the armed forces is the king. Should he say something or do something? Should he go to America for the 250th anniversary, just a few weeks time, to be there standing alongside a president who has so openly criticised his first minister, his prime minister?
Well, obviously, we have a clear separation between the monarchy and the prime minister. So no, he shouldn't say anything specifically to interfere. But actually, of course, he should go to America because there is a rebuilding of trust in the special relationship from what has now sunk to quite a low level. And actually, President Trump is a huge fan of the British monarchy, as we've seen in recent years. So that would be a great way to start to rebuild the relationship. It's going to take some time. It's not just a few words or one visit. And it's not just President Trump, it's the whole of the US administration. Confidence, it takes time to rebuild, and we now need to earnestly get on with that. So I think in that sense, absolutely, of course the king should visit.
Meanwhile, before we say goodbye, what is life like in Dubai at the moment? I don't know if you've seen a video which has gone viral from one influencer who was there at the beach club and then just was taken by surprise, looked up into the sky, and there was an interception. There he is there. He's saying, here I am at the beach club, and look what's happening in the sky above me. The Iron Dome in action, I presume. But he's still on the beach. People are still enjoying life.
And that's the whole point. Exactly that. Life goes on. I was at a dinner party with friends last night. People are resilient, determined, and there's no talk of any expats or people who've made their lives here panicking or leaving whatsoever. Of course, tourists who've had flights disrupted, we understand that's different. But people are resilient and getting on with their lives. And frankly, many people say, I'm probably safer here than the risk of being stabbed on the streets of London. That's the sort of resilient attitude that I'm hearing here in the UAE.
OK, Richard, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.